And we're back with some more Hartford Whalers franchise mode in FHM 8. And this one we are facing the Detroit Red Wings once again. So hopefully this time it is a different outcome. As last time, obviously they beat us in the first round and it was not pleasant. How'd Curry do this year? 92 points in 79 games. Yeah, he's getting pretty good. This will certainly be an interesting series. It's basically Coffee versus Curry here. The battle of the year one draft, I believe it was. Yeah, he dropped to 4. Right, that was the draft where he almost dropped to us. We were one pick away from picking Jari Kurri, but instead we picked Paul Coffey. So let's see which team made the right decision here. All right, here we go. Game number 1 against the Detroit Red Wings. We have a 5-2 Hartford win. 3 stars of the game: Coffey, Andrewchuk, and Kissio. Shots are 26-21 in favor of Hartford, and it looks like we all around dominated. So first period, Jari Kurri gets on the board early for Detroit, but it's soon followed up by Anton Stastny from Kelly Kissio and Paul Coffey with the first goal for us. Midway through the period, Marian Stastny with a goal from Peter and Paul Coffey. So all the Stastny brothers getting on the board there, as well as Paul Coffey twice. Second period, no scoring. Third period, you have Mahovlich for Detroit, getting it to a 2-2 tie. But then it's Paul Coffey with his first goal of the playoffs on the power play from Rogers and Howe. Then you have Rogers from Andrewchuk and Staunton, and then Roberts from Poulin and Andrewchuk to make it a 5-2 victory. All right, game number 2. That will be a 6-4 victory. 3 stars of the game: Sims, Curry, and Rogers. Shots are 33-18 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. First period, you have Sims scoring from Marian Stastny and Stevenson to make it 1-0, and then Hangsleben later on in the period from Rogers and Sims puts us up by 2 heading into the second period. Then Staunton scores from Rogers and Hagman for the first goal of the second period, but that's followed up by 3 Detroit goals from Ogrodnik, Curry, and Barrett to make it a 3-3 tie heading into the third. And then Detroit actually took the lead at one point. Brett Peterson with the goal early on in the period to make it 4-3, but then Al Sims with the game-tying goal from Nichols and Andrewchuk. Then about a minute later, Mark Howe takes the lead from Andrewchuk and Nichols, and then Rochefort from Staunton and Stastny, Anton Stastny to be specific. And we're up 2-0 in the series, and I believe we only need one more win, as the first round is a best of 5, I believe, in this time period. So with that, let's go into it. And that is a goal for Anton Stastny from Blaine Staunton and Mark Howe. We're up 1-0. And that is the end of 1. Heading into the second period, up 1-0. And there's a goal early by Kelly Kissio from Anton Stastny and Paul Coffey. We're up by 2. Oof. No. Mark Howe injured with a broken thigh. Why is it always Mark Howe? I feel like it's only Mark Howe that gets injured. That's like the second injury this season for him too. 3 months. Yeah, he's out for the playoffs. Oh man. So we're really going to be relying on Coffey heavily here on the defensive core. There you go. Bernie Nichols from Neufeld and Stastny makes it 3-0. So at least we seem to have this game. Oh, hold on a second. Before I speak any further, Jari Kurri with the goal makes it 3-1 Detroit. Or rather 3-1 Hartford, but he gets Detroit on the board. And we are headed into the third period up by 2. Come on, Hartford. And nothing happened in the third, so that is all she wrote. We take the series by a score of 3-0. Although, unfortunately, it did come at the cost of our captain on defense, Mark Howe. He's no longer able to participate in these playoffs. 3 stars of the game: Stastny, Curry, and Nichols. Shots worth 41-31 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. And we already saw the box score. Mark Howe's getting injured, but in return, we are getting Jorgen Pettersson off of the injury list. So before we move on to the next series, let's take a brief look at the playoff stats. So leading our team with 5 points is Anton Stastny, followed up by Coffey, Rogers, Staunton, and Andrewchuk, all with 4. Sims with 3 in 2 games. Nichols with 3. Kissio and Marian Stastny with 2. And you have a bunch of guys with 1, a few guys with 0. Now let's check in goal. Garrett is in goal. Good. And he has a 900 save percentage in 3 games played. Not bad. Oh, actually, something I forgot to do. I should have done at the end of the last video. But I'm going to check out the league stats real quick. So Gretzky led in goals with 64. LaRouche with 86 assists. Bossy with 147 points. But what I'm really interested in seeing is the average save percentage for the league. Most wins, Eddie Mio with 35. Best goals against average is 2.43 for Roland Melanson. Best save percentage is a 903 for Andy Moog. Okay, so Garrett was among the best goalies in the league this year. during the regular season. He had an 896 save percentage. That's 7th in the league. Oof. And then Davidson down there in 30th with the 874. So yeah, we're definitely holding on to Garrett, and then we're definitely getting rid of Davidson this upcoming offseason. And in the second round, we will be facing the Montreal Canadiens. It had to happen eventually, but I didn't think it'd be this soon. All right, let's see what you got for us, Montreal. What are you looking like? Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Larry Robinson, a 5-star defenseman. Gainey, Lafleur, Schutz, LaRouche, Napier, Jarvis, Roland Melanson, who had the best goals against average. He had 891 save percentage this year as well. And then, not to mention Andy Moog, who had the 903. Yeah, this is going to be a challenge. If we can get past these guys, then we have no excuses. We can make it to the Stanley Cup if we can beat the Montreal Canadiens, because they are far and away the toughest team in the league, at least in my opinion, based off their roster. I mean, let's take a look at Edmonton. Obviously, they have Gretzky, but in terms of their depth, Montreal is much better. So I think if we can beat Montreal, we could beat anyone. So here we go. Game 1 against the Montreal Canadiens. I believe this is a 7-game series. We have a 4-3 Montreal win. That's unfortunate. Would have liked to get the win there in game number 1, but what can you do? 3 stars of the game, LaRouche, Anton Stasny, and Lafleur. Shots are 36-20. Not what you like to see. They were kind of dominant there. First period summary, you have Peter Stasny scoring from Anton Stasny and Paul Coffey. Makes it 1-0, so we took the lead, at least to start out. And then you have Guy Lafleur unassisted later on in the period to get the game tied. Second period, you have Anton Stasny on the power play from Rogers and Coffey, so we took the lead twice. And yet, we could not hold on to it, as we actually took a 3-1 lead at one point. In the third period, Bernie Nichols from Andrechuk and Kissio, but then Napier, Lafleur make it tied by the end of regulation, so we have to go to overtime where Mark Napier scores to make it a 4-3 Montreal overtime win. That hurts. All right, game number 2. That is a 4-0 Montreal win. Not looking good. These are the game. Baker, Robinson, and Smith shot to 32-22 in favor of Montreal. First period, you have Aaron Broughton scoring, and then Steve Schutz to make it 2-0 Montreal. Second period, Larry Robinson scores to make it 3-0, and then Greg Smith scores in the third to make it a 4-0 Montreal win. Here we go. Game number 3. We need a big win here, Hartford. Come on. All right, there it is. There's the big win. They got their shutout. We got ours. We win 6-0 in game number 3, so they are beatable. The Montreal Canadiens, contrary to popular belief, are beatable. 3 stars of the game, Garrett, Freiser, and Anton Stasny. Shots are 41-31 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. First period, you have Dave Poulin scoring from Anton Stasny and Miroslav Freiser to make it 1-0 at the end of 1. Second period, this is where we did most of our scoring here. Bob Stevenson scores from Andrechuk and Peter Stasny to make it 2-0. Then you have Freiser scoring from Anton Stasny and Hangsleben to make it 3-0. Freiser again, unassisted, makes it 4-0. Al Sims from Rogers and Hagman makes it 5-0. And Paul Coffey with the lone goal of the third period on the power play from Rogers and Sims to make it the 6-0 victory. All right, here we go. Game number 4, and that'll be a 5-4 Montreal win. 3 stars of the game, LaRouche, Staunton, and Tremblay. Shots are 40-28 in favor of Montreal. First period, we actually got off to a 2-0 lead early in the game, very early in the game. Staunton 34 seconds in from Hagman and Rogers, and then Staunton again from Hagman and Rogers less than a minute later gets us up 2-0. But then LaRouche scores with 10 seconds remaining in the first period to cut the deficit in half. In the second period, you have Jorgen Pedersen with the goal from Peter Stasny and Roberts to make it 3-1. But then Steve Schutz later on in the period makes it 3-2. And the third period, Guy Lafleur with the power play goal, and then Robinson and LaRouche follow up to make it 5-3. Starting with the hat trick to make it interesting from Coffey and Andrechuk, but it was not enough, unfortunately. So we take the loss, and we are now down 3-1 in the series. All right, here we go. Game number 5, we are going into it. This is elimination on the line. Come on, Hartford, push it game 6. There's a goal early by Pierre Mondu for Montreal to make it 1-0. Oh, all right, Peter Stasny from Pedersen and Kissio gets it tied at 1 halfway through the first. Doug Jarvis, or Jarvis, however it's pronounced, from Carbonneau and Smith makes it 2-1. That was shorthanded, I believe, too. Guy Lafleur with another one from Bob Gainey and Pierre Larouche. Oh no, Pierre Larouche. We're only in the first period. Stop doing this. Oh man. That is the end of one, and that was not a pretty first period. Come on, Hartford. We need something of a comeback here. We need something of a comeback. Man, Garrett has a 500 save percentage. No. Don't do this. Come on. There you go. Dave Poulon from Staunton and Sims. So we're still behind by 2, but we are gradually climbing that mountain. Oh boy, a lot of penalties here. And Carbonneau with the goal for Montreal. That is 5-2. Oh no, Steve shoots. Pain. Yeah, not looking good going into the third period here. Down by 4. Miroslav Reiser with the goal from Poulin and Stasny. Still got quite a bit to go. Yeah, it's not happening. LaRouche with the goal makes it 7-3. And Montreal, they're just too good. They're just way too good. And it's a shame because we had a chance in game number 1 that went to overtime, right? That ended 4-3, I think. And we had the lead at one point too in that game. So it sucks that we couldn't hold the lead there. That might have changed the entire complexion of the series. But unfortunately, that's not how it went. 3 stars of the game, LaRouche, Carbonneau, and Gainey. And then shots are 31-28 in favor of Montreal. So while that is unfortunate, we did get to see a lot of improvement from our team this year. However, the only problem is a lot of our core, including Rogers, Staunton, Garrett as well, he could also be considered part of our core just given how well he performed this year. Most of our core is getting to the age where we have to consider trading them, otherwise we are going to be falling behind once again. Because when it comes to young assets, we really still don't have much. I mean, we have Coffee, he's not going anywhere. But in terms of young elite talent, that's about it. That's really about it. Even Mike Vernon, who is a 3-star potential, he's still a ways away from the NHL. Andrzejczyk's pretty good. He's 19 years of age, 2.5-star ability, 3-star potential. Hopefully he could push that a little bit more based off the good play that he had this year with 59 points in 76 games. There's Bernie Nichols as well, but honestly, he's been, up until this year, he was kind of struggling. And I think part of that is due to injury, because he did have 42 points this year. So he wasn't bad at all. He really wasn't. But the question is, will he be elite? At this point, I'm not sure, considering he's already 21. And usually, if you're going to be a star in this game, it's usually a player like Paul Coffey, who's 21 as well, but he's already a 4.5-star ability, you know? So at most, I would say I could see Nichols being a 3.5-star ability when he's at the peak of his career. But if we want to compete with a team like Montreal, we need some really good players because they have a lot of really good players. So my point is, even though we did succeed in the playoffs this year to an extent, we won a round, but we didn't make it past the Montreal Canadiens as expected. And in order to beat a team like that, we need some young stars. And we only have one of them really in Coffey. With Staunton being 30, Garrett's not going to last too much longer in the NHL, I don't think, just based off his ability and his age. And then if we're trading Staunton, then at that point, you also have to consider whether or not you want to trade Rogers and Mark Howe. Because Staunton's a pretty significant offensive piece. Even though his ability went down to 4 stars from 4.5 stars, he's still really good. But he's not going to be like that for much longer. And I just... We don't have the assets to be taking any risks when it comes to keeping players on the team that are, getting past their prime. And just given how this league is, being only a 21 league team currently, where only 5 teams miss the playoffs, and it seems like all the top teams like, Edmonton, Montreal, they are always going to be good as long as they can keep their rosters together, which is very easy in this day and age because there's no salary cap. So as long as they have the budget to pay their players, they're going to be able to keep their team together. So it's not like, they're going to be getting any worse anytime soon. Basically, the only time Montreal will start getting worse is when their players really start aging and then regressing in ability. And by the time that happens, it's going to be like probably year number 8 or year number 9. I'm not waiting that long to be the best team in the league, Or if I do have to wait that long to be the best team in the league, I would rather start the process now. Get rid of guys like Rogers and Staunton and Howe even maybe, so that 5 years from now, we can not only have a good team, but a young team as well, so that success lasts for a long time. Because if we continue on with this roster, I can't see us being competitive too long. even though we have guys like Coffey and Anderchuk, we would be losing out on a lot if we didn't trade Rogers and Staunton and maybe even Howe. So that's the big question here. Do we sacrifice some of the now in order to really stack up for the future and just make sure that we're a dynasty by the late 1980s, you know? Because if we keep going like this and the NHL entry draft stays the way it has been for the past few years, we're not getting anywhere anytime soon unless we start a rebuild. Or if we just happen to get lucky and beat Montreal in the playoffs. But as we've seen by this past playoffs, that's clearly not going to be an easy task. Because in this day and age, even if you make the playoffs, that doesn't mean you're a good team. I mean, obviously our record was good this year, but I don't know. I feel really nervous about the future because we just don't have any really good young talent besides Coffey, and maybe you can consider Anderchuk and Bernie Nichols as good young talent as well. But they're not, you know, to the point of elite. So I'm not saying that we can't make the playoffs next year. Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, like, if we want to truly have any success against teams like Montreal or Edmonton, we need to get some more elite players. And that's not happening through free agency, as we've seen. Because free agency in this day and age is basically a non-factor. We don't have enough assets to get that kind of player through a trade. And based on what we've seen so far in these drafts, they're not very deep. Like, literally, we have seen... in the second round last year, I believe the best player was like a 1.5 star potential. So I just feel really uneasy about our future success, given everything that's happened so far. I mean, we could try going on a year-to-year basis and see how it goes, sort of deal, but it's just we're not giving ourselves the best chance to beat Montreal at that point. Like, we're just doing nothing, basically. I think that's the equivalent of leaving our roster exactly the same. Because like I said, free agency is basically a non-factor. Trades are going to be hard to come by, and picking anywhere beyond the top 10 picks in the draft is seemingly pointless, honestly, at least so far from what I've seen. So, like, I want to win right now. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like, how do I compete with Montreal? Anyway, I think we'll leave things off here, and in the next one, we will get to the offseason of year number 4, where we will decide what path we are taking with this team.